Hi everyone, how you doing? This is Lola again, Lola Ajishafa to be precise. Today I'm going to do something different. I haven't done it before. This is a new YouTube channel, so of course it'll be different. I actually wanted to review a show today. It is Love and Marriage Huntsville. So of course this is mid-season, but I'm like, I watched the show, why not? And of course, this episode was a little, I won't say triggering, but interesting as to the turn of events. So being that this is new, we'll go ahead and let's see how it goes. So this episode is called Checking Out. So we'll kind of start at the beginning. The first scene, of course, is Marcel and Tisha. He's discussing with her, I'm not going to kind of recount the episode like you didn't watch it. So they're kind of talking about what happened the night prior and her exchange with Mel. And he said something, I was kind of impressed with his point of view. Or was he playing at, because there is this dynamic between him and Tisha where he does a little, remote controlling. So he's aware of her strengths and weaknesses and is able to play around to get what he wants or what he needs behind knowing what where her strengths are and where her weaknesses are. So he goes on to say, well, that little exchange you had with Mel, I don't really agree with it, and this is why. And so his reasoning really, just on the surface, it makes sense. She's going through a hard time, and the truth is, if someone says what you said, like, I think that's BS, that you don't have to be rocket science to know that, or scientist to know that you're not going to get a good response when you say that. So of course, right down, that goes downhill from there. And he's like, also keep in mind, because she's like, well, I don't believe it. He's like, well, keep in mind that she's also going through a lot. So as someone who has everything kind of going smooth sailing right now, why would you kick someone when they're down? So if you really want to put everything behind you, you really should attempt to just kind of take it as it comes. And the thing is, when you kind of think about real life, the truth is you can say most things, but it depends on how you say it. And her coming and like, oh, well, I think it's BS, really was, I guess maybe she feels like she's finding her voice, and so she decides to, come all out, guns blazing. She finally gets an opportunity to hit back and does so. But when you kind of look at the dynamic between Tisha and Mel, I feel like, maybe in the beginning, when they first became friends, Tisha really looked up to her, really admired her, looked at the role that Mel and Martell were playing, as the power couple, and she kind of idolized them somewhat. So I think as the seasons went by, she got disillusioned, maybe so because Mel wasn't giving her all that, however it is, but there was some kind of dynamic there. So there is some hurt behind this little display of anger she has where she keeps on holding on to things. So I feel at this point, Maurice gave her good information, go back, sort this out and go from there. We agree with that. So, goes on to the next scene. You see where, Kimmy comes over to see Mel just to check in on her and say, how's everything going since, the evening prior where she had a little blowout with Tisha. And not much happens here. The only thing they're able to tell us here is, oh, I've seen you on Instagram, you've been dating, blah, blah, blah. Nothing here, folks. Just another filler scene, just kind of lead you on. But another scene that kind of came up after this was the scene between, Martell and Maurice. So Martell comes in and he's, talking with Maurice, say, I'm coming to see you, you're my dudes. And another thing, you've been divorced and I'm going through this divorce right now. I'd love to get your insight on things because we all know that, Maurice is level-headed, has, just a nice, even tone, and always gives, positive words, of encouragement. So he'll give you information and package it nicely. And that's what Martell felt he needed. And I thought that, Maurice delivered. He gave him something I thought was worthwhile because he asked him, what, do you really want to get divorced? And of course, Martell comes up with, no, I don't. No, his reasons for saying why he didn't, I wasn't impressed. She brings me breakfast and we go to church. That's why you don't want to get divorced? But okay, I digress. We're not going to tear him apart right now. So, but what I feel that Maurice gave him to hold on to was, when he went through a divorce with his ex-wife, before the divorce proceedings started, he had checked out, most definitely checked out a while back, as well as his ex. So they both had checked out of the situation before, the issue of divorce came up. So to him, it made perfect sense in this grand scheme of things, that there was nothing left to save, nothing left to salvage, because, you know, everyone knows with a divorce, it really is a death of something. And so with a death, there are casualties. And particularly with them, he's looking at their example, they've got 4 young children. And so if there's something to save, go ahead and save it. So keep fighting. So, you know, Martell takes this into his little cap and he's running with it. And he's like, you know what? Thank you, that I'm really gonna run with this. And so they go into the next scene. And then, you know, thinking, it kind of flips back to Marceau and Tisha. You know, they've got this new cigar bar, as they call it, that's opening up. And so they do a tasting with their new chef. And we've known at the time, you know, to me, it looked like just another avenue for an income, for him to get an income stream. But I kind of loved the reasoning here, and it kind of made me, even though, you know, Maurice is the baddie you love to hate, but there is something, you know, salvageable about him in this particular scene where he's talking with the chef brings the food. Clearly, as he's eating, he's enjoying the meal, but it gets to a point where he's giving the guy, his chef, you know, some feedback, and he says, you know what, the food tastes okay, but I'm not impressed with the presentation. And his reasoning really kind of resonated with me. He's like, you know what, the reason why I call this bar or cigar bar, you know, black, is because I want to cater to my people. I want them to feel like this is somewhere they can come to, and I can earn their trust and have them feel, you know, comfortable that this is for them. This is for them, it's about them, as opposed to, you know, other places that may not necessarily cater to make, you know, black people feel encouraged. So from what he's saying, he's also going to be considerate about the price line. And that mission statement kind of, you know, it was admirable and respectable. He might be, you know, selling me some cookies, but it sounds good and definitely kind of makes him appear more appealing. And, you know, they kind of go back and forth in terms of, you know, picking a GM. You know, the GM is the main person that kind of runs the day-to-day, where they come in and check in and check out. And so he comes up with the suggestion that he'd like to get Jalen on board as the GM. You know, there's some back and forth. Of course, you know, Tisha's concerned that Jalen doesn't have any experience. But I kind of like, you know, Marceau's reasoning. He's like, you know what? Yeah, he don't have experience, but that's fine. That can be replaced. But I want someone to be there for these reasons. And of course, when he brings Jalen in to come and just, you know, walks him around and says, this is what I want for you. I want you to be my GM. And he's asking Jalen, he's like, Jalen, do you know why I want you to be the GM? And Jalen look at him like, you know, crickets chirping, like, and I thought it was cute. But he explains to him further and says, you know what, because I trust you. And not because I trust you because of money, but I trust you being that I know that you will have, you know, you'll put the bar above. Any decision you'll make will be because of the bar, not for yourself. And of course, in the back of his mind is thinking, this dude is my nephew, he's family. So he's going to put what we need first, as opposed to whatever kind of career thing somebody else might have in mind. And he's like, as well as, you know, he'll probably give him a stake in the bar. So that, of course, will be more motivating for him to do the best he can for this thing, which it makes sense. You bring family on board. For the most part, family is always a great choice for these kind of businesses, particularly, you know, where you have to put your heart, soul, sweat. Everyone knows that the food business is one of the hardest places to crack. And so most of your money always goes on expenses, you know, what's going out. So of course, I think that's another great decision. Well, we'll see. It's left to be seen, but it seems like a great choice, you know, for him to pick Jalen along to go along and be his GM. So we kind of go back, you know, it goes further on into the episode. I kind of like the scene between Marceau and Mel. Now, when I see these two, particularly this episode, it feels like, you know, like this sibling rivalry. You know, she kind of nips at him more, that she doesn't nip at any other guys like this but him. And he takes it, you know, good-heartedly. I'm like, just smile. She's like, oh no, you again? And it's just like this nice back and forth. But he says, so his reasonings for coming to see her in front of her new office, which was the old Holton Holt office, was just to discuss that, you know what, I knew that you had some kind of exchange with my wife, Tisha, and I just want to say that, you know, I've kind of spoken with her, and I think you guys should have a redo. And so he gives her like an official invitation to the soft opening. So it's not ready yet, but it's a soft opening where they'll possibly just try out the menu. Soft opening for their cigar bar, Black. And then they go on to something which I'm wondering why he's never shared with Tisha, where he says, where they both kind of agree that outside parties don't destroy a relationship. A relationship is only destroyed by the two people involved in that relationship. And he completely agrees with her. Yeah, I agree with her. And but he never quite says that, or I don't remember him ever saying that to Tisha to kind of nip it in the bud, because it looks like Tisha's also mad at Mel because of, in the prior seasons where, while she honestly really did look like she was, enjoying the anguish that Mel was going through when the word of, Martell's indiscretions were coming out. She took some pleasure in, oh, you know what, person I idolized, it's not so perfect after all. So she took some pleasure in it. And so once Mel realized that, I feel like she kind of nipped back at her by saying, well, you know what, you really don't know what's going on in your relationship either. Whether that's true or not, it probably wasn't her place to say it, but I felt like she was just kind of hitting back as a defense mechanism, because you could see that, Tisha was kind of more or less having, enjoying her anguish. So even though I feel, going back to the present, even though, if Mel knows something or not about whether Maurice has, involved himself in extracurricular activities, it's not really her place to say it. But she said it just to dig at her. But now I guess at this point, she's like, I'm done. This relationship we're fighting over is done. I don't want to fight anymore. But then at this point, it looks like, Tisha is not quite yet ready to let go. Hasn't forgiven that. Either she knows something or she doesn't want to let go. I don't know. But I kind of like their little exchange there where they're kind of going back and forth. And he's like, oh, excuse me, dress yourself. But I'd like to see how it progresses. I don't think she dislikes him as much as she might put on, because she stood there and talked with him and laughed with him. So I feel, like I said, it just feels like this brother-sister relationship where people have these funny exchanges. So leading into the main scene that really, I don't want to say I enjoyed it, but I felt like it, if anybody was confused, this particular scene, I feel like should clarify things. We've had this, years, well, seasons. It's been at least 2 seasons of this talk of, Martell is, is cheating, indiscretions, blah, 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 blah. And then you have, 2 general points of view have been coming. You have the general idea where people say, well, try and, working out, da, da, da. And then you have others where they'll say, if anybody cheats on me, I'm just going as soon as it happens. That also, I don't necessarily think is the most realistic thing, because it really is on a case-to-case basis, and your relationship is unique to you and what you're going through and how it's occurring, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of hard it's hard for the peanut gallery to really have an accurate opinion, in my opinion, as to what they really should have done up until this point. So let's set the scene. So from prior episodes, we've met this friend of Martell's, Chris Fletcher, to be precise. Nice looking gentleman who has tried to give Martell some good pointers and say, bruh, that's not how you do it. And of course, true to form, Martell has this personality trait which is very unattractive. Very handsome man on the outside, but this character trait of his is very unattractive, where he has had the need to bite back. So as Chris is kind of telling him in prior episode, guy, cool down, calm down. You really did wrong, so you should really cop this. And he throws it out there, well, you cheated too. That totally irrelevant in my opinion in that scene. So see, this is how we meet Chris Fletcher. Chris Fletcher seems like a guy who's human, has learned from his mistakes, or so we're presented to believe, and is trying to steer his guy away from making, a graver mistake by not coming back. Because the truth is, I don't know, but I think that maybe if he had a position where he's like, you know what, I did something wrong, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again, and did do it again, they wouldn't be here right now. Because it seems like, it's hard to even say what it seems, because he does have these personality traits that really peg him to have some kind of personality disorder. I'm never going to throw out any names right now, but he does seem to have something going on with him that prevents him from being sincere. He does not seem authentic. He's aware that he's a handsome gentleman. He does seem to appear to be a good father, and so he thinks he's the ultimate catch. He forgets that his wife that he picked and married is also a great catch as well. I think it's dawning on him the closer it seems that, like, I can't manipulate her back into this relationship. He's realizing that it's dawning on him that I can't control her anymore. So going back to this scene, Chris Fletcher's wife, who's called Nell, invites Mel over to her house to just talk. So Mel gets there, and then Nell's like, at the door, she's like, look, I just want to level with you right now. I have Martell here, and me and Chris, we just want to talk and see what can be done. You know, we just want to talk. I don't want you to be upset. We're just talking. And so she kind of, you know, she's like already putting like, okay, come on, you know. And you can see the respect she has for, because she calls her Miss Nell too. You know, those from the South will always put a Miss in front of someone's name if we know that they're older than us and we have respect for them. And so you can tell she respects her. She said, hey, Miss Nell, okay, all right, fine. I'm going to come and listen. And so she sits down, there's Chris Fletcher, and then there's Martell. You know, Martell's doing that little silly, you know, small talk, you know. And she's, you know, I don't know what it wasn't lemonade, but it was some juice poured in a cup. She's sitting real quiet, just sipping. Let's see what, she's like thinking like, let's see what crap this dude boy would throw on us right now. Like she almost knew something about to play out. So, you know, Nell starts the conversation with, you know, so, do you guys still want to be married? And there's silence, because Nell's like, well, bro, you organize this. What's up? Tell me what's going on. And then, you know, Martell, he grunts something and says something. I think she laughs, you know, because, you know, first of all, Mel's like, yeah, me married to who? She says a little something just to kind of, she don't want to, I feel like at that point, she didn't want to outrightly say no. So she's like, you know what? So I think at that point, her response kind of, you know, made homie Martell a little, you know, enraged. So he comes up with, you know, well, you know what, the kids are hurting. I'm like, bruh, you didn't know your kids were hurting when you started this mess? And it's been going on. So anyway, first dot. Second dot, this is when you know this guy's not serious or his personality disorder. It overcomes what he really desires. So, all right, excuse me. So back to the story. So pretty much that was the first dot he did. Now the second dot he threw, you know, he felt he hadn't hit it hard enough. So the second thing he does, he's like, well, you know, when we were, you know, living together, married, I did most of the heavy lifting with the kids. I was doing most of the rearing. You know what? Now those are fighting words in any language, in any culture. No, actually, you know what? Even if a woman said that to a man, a lot of men would take, you know, offense to that. Talk less of a man saying that to a woman. He's saying that, yeah, he would do most of the heavy lifting at work and he was doing most of the child rearing at home. So, yeah. So, like I said, he knows usually how to manipulate her, and he knew this was going to get her going. This was going to get her engine going. And so he says, you know what? You know, I did most of the heavy lifting, and then it got to a point where I had to tell you that. I digress. He had already shot that final dot. That was enough. He already, you know, set the plane off. It had landed. It was just a couple of seconds to go. And then, you know, Miss Nell kind of she notices that, you know, things are kind of changing. You know, she talks about, you know, when they checked out, blah, blah, blah. He's saying that they both checked out. And then what's her name? Mel corrects him and says, no, bro, you checked out in March. And because she said right before COVID, they'd kind of gotten on the right track. But of course, after that period, then things kind of changed. And we assume that this change happened sometime in March of, you know, 2020, right when COVID hit. And so, you know, they kind of start talking, and then he gives this excuse that makes me, I think it enrages anyone with some common sense, where he says that, you know what, I told you what I want, you didn't do what I wanted you to do, you didn't do what you didn't take care of me, you didn't do blah, 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 blah. And so that's why I cheated. It's your fault. So you cheated because she made you. That's what he's saying. Okay, this guy went to college. I know he appears to have some intelligence, but like when he says stuff like that, he's showing his behind. Let's use the correct term. He's showing his behind. So that really gets me. I feel like I get a little triggered when I hear that. So she tripped you and you fell on top of a woman and kept falling on her for 5 years. Kept falling until you got her pregnant. And then, you know, what was it, a season ago when he said that she was merely a peasant? So he kept falling on this same peasant. He called her a peasant. Kept falling on top of her until he impregnated the peasant. And this peasant's about to give birth to his own child. You know what? I don't know the young lady, but I do feel for her. She has another story wrapped up because he said this on a national show that she was a peasant, but that didn't stop anything. Even if he said that, if in anger, in jest, That's not digestible. But we digress. So back to the scene. So he's like, well, I went over there because you didn't do what I wanted, and then you didn't satisfy me. And then after that, the last point where he says you didn't satisfy me, she just, and I don't blame her, Mel just gets so enraged and she tosses, boom! That was like the dot to like, you know what, you've done this now, I'm done. And I don't blame her. And she said, she was like, I'm done with you. If you felt that she was satisfying you, you should have kept on moving and then filed the divorce papers. You didn't have to put me through all what you put me through. Because prior to that, Nell had mentioned that, part of the pain that she felt for Mel was the fact that it wasn't just an indiscretion, but it was that one person that he kept going back to. And so it means it wasn't just an indiscretion. This was a real relationship. You were conducting simultaneous marriages. I mean, was she now become a common law mistress or something, because that was the one he kept going to. And even though she knew about her, that didn't stop or prevent him from continuously going back to her. Whether we knew or we didn't know, he kept it up. So that was a source of pain, because of course, as a woman, she's asking herself questions: is it me? What have I done? What's wrong with me? Am I broken? Am I this? Am I that? And it's true, attractive, beautiful woman. She's had beautiful children. She's doing the work. She's doing the job. She's doing all these things. But yet he doesn't seem to be able to stop, engage, and say, you know what, this is more important to me. If I love this woman, I'm married to her, let me keep doing this. He doesn't think about that. He keeps doing it until she'd had enough. And, they kind of, of course, thankfully so, some of the one particular person in the production team, takes, Martell off, has him. So that means he needs to leave. He goes to his car. He's not apologetic, and he's not apologetic because he got the reaction he wanted. And I think for someone like him, any reaction is a desired reaction, whether it's a good reaction or a bad reaction. He got a reaction out of her, and that's possibly what he wanted, because he kept going until she blew. So he's not apologetic. He's still, the honest thing, in his mind, I don't know if he really knows that he's at fault, because everyone who he keeps approaching, he's been selling this tale about how, she cheated first. And I think it's clear that he has not had his come to Jesus moment, because at this point it's likely they will get divorced and it will be confirmed. Because it's one thing to do something wrong like this, to have this moment of cheatation. Cheaterization is what I should call it. He's had this moment of cheaterization, and it's not a singular moment. And it's another thing not to be able to reflect, cop to it, and own it and say, you know what, I did this and it was wrong. He hasn't had that moment yet, so they haven't had the opportunity to heal. He still has some moments where he's justifying the madness, and herein they're heading for divorce, and most likely will be divorced because he don't think he's done anything wrong. And that's a shame. That's a shame, because that's a waste of a good-looking man. No common sense, just walking around ready to deceive the next, gullible person. Really sad. So anyway, he leaves. So we pan back to, Nell is now, she's apologizing. She's like, I don't know, how it went left, and I'm sorry that I kind of brought you in. And, with Mel, rightfully so, she's like, guys, I keep telling everyone keeps trying to convince me to come back to him and get back, but I keep quiet. Like, how did she put it? She said, I keep quiet in a way to control my emotions. So if at the beginning of the sit down, she was just sipping her juice and being quiet, but controlling her emotions. And the thing is, she was going to probably stay like that, but of course, Martell intentionally was poking, because he was trying to get a reaction, and he got the reaction he desired. And I'm not sure what he wanted to achieve by that reaction, but he got that reaction. And so she's like, look, I've been telling you guys that, I know she begins to understand the pattern where he tries to, get a reaction out of her. So I think she's familiar with this now, and she can almost see this from the outside because they've had some time of separation. And, and during that exchange, you'll notice that Chris, here looking down and looking around, his boy just acting out of order, but never checks him. And probably doesn't even have any eye contact with him. Even when he followed his boy to the car, he didn't really say anything like, dude, you were wrong. You know what? With Nell and Chris Fletcher, there's another story there. And if they were to ask me, I'm like, don't be a regular on this show, or that stuff is going to come out. I don't know if there's something to hide, or if he just doesn't, he don't want none of that smoke, because he knows that Martell's mouth is reckless, and he's like, I don't want none of this, because he knows his boy's wrong. Because he will look, if you look at it, he's looking down, he's like, oh. And of course he's like, yeah, I know who's, but he didn't give me a chance to say something. Nah, dude, you could shut that down quick with some bass. But he knows his boy, doesn't know how to behave. You know how they say there's honor amongst thieves? Martell doesn't know what that means. There's certain things you should have amongst guys where, I don't know, didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing, nothing, I don't know. Nah, when Martell feels pressure, he'll start singing like a canary. So I think for those guys who are his friends, be clear. Your boy, one of y'all. So I feel like that's why Chris didn't say anything. Maybe there's more that Martell may know. And he don't want his business out in the street, so he's just looking down like, man, this business, like, this marriage is over anyway. I've got nothing here, nothing to see, folks. So I think just kind of, at the end of the episode, it shows, to me, it shows that, Mel definitely does have, there's still emotions there. They haven't died yet. So that there's still love there, because what really got her going was when because he tried it 1, 2, and then the third one, like she kept satisfying you. Boom. So there are feelings there, but she's rising, coming above herself. You can tell she's a strong woman, but loved him, understandably so. She loved him, but now she's coming back to herself, coming back to who she is, what she stands for, no longer ready to take what she took in the past. And I think that's what's appealed to most of us in Mel, because I think in prior episodes or seasons, let's say other seasons, when she was taking it in, I wasn't really feeling it. And I feel there was another part of her personality. She's not innocent either, but I felt like she was even more catty, maybe because she was taking more from him. She had to dish out more to other people, but she seems less catty and probably more relaxed, because she's not taking in that nonsense that, Martell was dishing to her. So really, in a nutshell, it looks like this divorce is on track, that they are definitely going to be getting divorced. So this is, the end of the episode, checked out. And most likely, if you guys enjoy this review, I'll probably end up doing a regular of this. So once again, remember, like, comment, subscribe. Lola signing out. Thank you.